Jaylen Brown gets player of the week, but I don't even think he's anywhere close to his full potential. Plus, Gregg Popovich answers a question about the offense that I think serves as a message to this team, and I hope they take it to heart. Plus, we're going to take a look to see if the Celtics can actually reclaim that top seed. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast dropped directly to your device. Whichever app you use, whichever podcasting app is your choice, this show is on there. So subscribe there, subscribe on YouTube, watch the show, hop into the comment section, join a growing Celtics community there. Lots of fun discussion there. Talk about the games, talk about the podcast, talk about me. I don't care. Have fun there. I'm John Karalis. I used to play professional basketball a long time ago. Now I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal. I've also written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, which you can get if you want a signed copy. It's on johnkaralis.com. Makes a great birthday gift. Father's Day is going to be coming up soon. And whatever, just buy for yourself. Or it's on Amazon. Later on in the third segment, we'll look to see if the Celtics can actually reclaim that top seed. I'm recording this after the Celtics, after the Milwaukee Bucks beat the Detroit Pistons without Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Boston is now 2 games behind the Milwaukee Bucks officially with, where are we at? 7 games left to play. It's going to be tough. Can they actually do it? That's in the third segment. Second segment, Celtics get a message from Gregg Popovich. He didn't mean it as a message to them, but I'm taking it as a message to them, at least one that they should hear. They need to hear it. That's in the second segment. Let's start with Jaylen Brown, the player of the week in the NBA, third time in his career, third Celtic to be player of the week this season. That hasn't happened in a few years. Toronto did it in the 2020 season. Celtics were 3-0 with Brown there this week. The Sacramento game, the San Antonio game, the Indiana game. 31.7 points, 8.3 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 34.5 minutes a game. He's the only player in the East to have 30 points per game while shooting better than 55% from the field and 39% from three. So that's a pretty good week. Goes along with what I was saying in yesterday's podcast, that great shooting, great, the scoring, everything's up for Jaylen Brown. Most points in the Eastern Conference, and just for good measure, 24 points in 8 straight games. Second longest active streak in the league. Jaylen Brown on fire. But I tell you what, I think he's just scratching the surface. Jaylen Brown is finding a nice little groove here, and think he's playing really, really well. He's still doing some of the same things wrong. He's still somewhat turnover prone, that he turned the ball over a bunch against the Spurs. Still needs to be conscious of where some of the help defenders are, where guys might be coming from. Still can get lost in some of that from time to time, but the way he's been playing, the way he's been reading the game, I talked about that yesterday. Joe Mazzulla had some great quotes about that yesterday. He's been on a real roll. He's been playing great. He's seeing the floor really, really, really well. He's taking what the defense is giving him in terms of reading whether, am I getting all the way to the rim? Great. Do I need to pull up for a mid-range? Great. Am I coming off of a pin down to catch a for a 3-point shot? Great. Al Horford sets those pin downs for Jaylen all the time. Lots of really good stuff from Jaylen here. But Jaylen just turned 26 years old before the season. There's a magic number here for basketball players. And it might not apply universally to like some of these elite basketball players because it's, you're just so good, but still 27 years old is such a magic number because I think that's about the time where the stuff your brain is telling your body to do, your body's doing it at its absolute peak. It's doing it at its maximum efficiency. It's doing it faster than ever. The everything is working in unison. And maybe it doesn't apply to every player. Like I said, some of maybe the lesser, when there's the talent level, you need to have certain things like me. You need to have certain things happening to be your absolute best. When everything's working together, boy, it feels good. 27 years old is just brain and body coming together. You've got, especially in the NBA, you've got tons of experience now. You've seen everything by 27. You've done everything basically. And at that point, he's going to be in we hope, the final year before an extension kicks in that sets him up for, he's set for life anyway, but this is like complete generational, absolute monster wealth, hundreds of millions of dollars. Just, so that kind of stuff is out of his head too. If I'm going to put it on a scale of, like 0 to 100, if I'm just doing it percentage wise, I still don't think that he's anywhere close to 100%. I think he's still probably, I guess it depends on what your definition of anywhere close is, but he's in the 80% range. And I think I'm at 82, 83, 84. He's kind of like 15 to 20% kind of left. However, whatever that final 15 to 20% is, he still has a lot to kind of figure out. He still has a lot to tighten up with how he sees the game. He still has a lot. He can add layers to how he sees the game. He can add a layer of game manipulation to his game. He can add a layer of just even more kind of coordination and the anticipation part of it. That stuff is all still kind of new to him. He's making some moves, he's making some reads. But you remember, early Jaylen was straight line drive guy, just try to blast through a player or blast over a player. But what he's become now is so much more under control. And that body control, that ability to just feel the game is going to be at its absolute peak moving forward. And look at Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum is still a few years away from this. The Celtics are years away from having absolute peak Tatum and Brown. So that makes the All-NBA discussion a pretty interesting one and a pretty important one for the Celtics because the best Jaylen Brown is still yet to come. He has his deficiencies, like I said. If he can erase a lot of those deficiencies, build on the things that he's learning, continue to grow as a player, as a person, then the Jaylen Brown of the 2025 season, a couple seasons from now, is going to be who knows what. He could be, I think, significantly better. And I don't think at that point there will be a discussion. I don't think there will be a discussion of all NBA. I think by that point, he will just become, if he reaches that next 15% of his capabilities, I think that guy can be a mainstay on the All-NBA. I think there's still a lot more for Jaylen, I should say, and Tatum to reach. So congrats on the player of the week, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be moving forward. Can he be all NBA? We'll see. Gregg Popovich had a message. It wasn't intended as a message for the Celtics, but I think they should take it as such. And it's a really important one. And it may be something that fuels Jaylen Brown, fuels Jayson Tatum, and it could, if they get this message and take it to heart, man, could unlock this team being one of the best teams we've seen. That's all coming up next. First, let's talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. A lot of you are listening from Massachusetts. Sports betting just became legal in Massachusetts. Maybe sports betting recently became legal in some of the places where you live outside of Massachusetts. This is great because new customers to FanDuel get a no-sweat first bet of up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up today. Claim your no-sweat first bet. Once you do that, bet on whatever you want. Money line, point spreads, who's going to be cutting down the nets at the end of March Madness. It's all right there at FanDuel. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. When you win, you get your money quickly. It can be in your bank account as soon as a couple of hours. So don't miss out on your shot at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Again, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. If you're going to do it, I just ask you, please gamble responsibly. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. You can make your second listen any one of the other Locked On podcasts out there. We say your team every day, and we mean that. Whatever other teams, maybe you're just a Celtics fan, and that's great. Or maybe you're a wide-ranging sports fan, and you like the Celtics and a football team, a baseball team, a college team, whatever you want. Whatever your favorite team is, there is a Locked On podcast for you. If you're a Boston fan, just a straight line, Celtics, Red Sox, Bruins, Patriots fan, then join the other Locked On podcasts here on the network. It's a great group, and everybody works really, really hard. So check them out wherever you get your podcast, wherever you found this one. Gregg Popovich was there addressing the media before the game like every head coach does. I'll let you in behind the scenes. Normally, so Joe Mazzulla speaks first at home games, and then the opposing team head coach speaks in a different room. And usually I just kind of hang out in the back and don't really have much to ask. I don't normally have anything to ask, really. I just let them ask their questions. Let's hear what the answers are going to be. Every once in a while, you wait till the end, and I'll ask a question, and maybe I'm working on something, or I know that there's going to be a storyline that I want to get a certain head coach's kind of take on. I get a quote and I kind of pocket it for whenever I need it. But usually just hanging out in the back. Well, Gregg Popovich, San Antonio Spurs were here. I hold Gregg Popovich in the absolute highest regard. He's up there with, Red Auerbach for me. And the Spurs don't really travel. Spurs reporters don't travel. There's not much to travel for. Your team's tanking. They're terrible. They've won 19 games. They're just awful. It's a small market, so there was only one Spurs guy there. So I was front row center, man. I was front row right in front of Pop. I'm sitting there, and when I talk to Joe, I say, I call him Joe. But when I talk to Popovich, it's like, Coach, hey, Coach. It's the old player in me where I respect this guy as a head coach. It's not that I don't respect everyone as a head coach, but this guy is like a god, and he's always going to be coach to me. So I asked them, said, everybody's trying to kind of duplicate what the 2014 Spurs teams have been trying to do it. Brad Stevens trying to do it over here, tried to do it as a head coach, tried to do it in the front office, building a team, trying to put together a team that emulates this 2014 Spurs, the beautiful game Spurs. Why can't anybody do it? And it's a simple answer. Because Timmy, Manu, Tony, and Boris aren't out there. It doesn't have anything to do with me teaching this or that. You have a good combination of guys that really get it, and they got it. And I thought, man, what an answer. Because there's so much wrapped up in just those couple of sentences. 3 sentences worth of big-time message to me. And I hope the Celtics hear that quote. I hope it gets through to those guys, and I hope it gets through in the way that I'm hearing that quote. And he did not mean it as a message or a diss to anybody outside that's trying to do this. He basically was, one, being self-deprecating, because that's who he is. He was talking about his Hall of Fame. He's going to make the Hall of Fame. And he said, Yeah, he never really wanted it because he basically feels like a product of serendipity. They got Tim Duncan. They got awesome. Tim Duncan left. They're not as good anymore. That's what made him a great head coach, which is he's being self-deprecating. That's absolutely not true. But whatever. That's Pop. He's downplaying his accomplishments. So that there's that element. But when he says you have a good combination of guys that really get it and they got it, that is so loaded. There's so much there. And those words are what I want the Celtics to really hear and really take to heart. Because this isn't me, John Karalis, podcaster, beat reporter, guy that probably annoys them with questions, saying this stuff. This isn't a take. This isn't somebody's take from somebody else. Gregg Popovich said these words, and they need to hear them. You have a good combination of guys that really get it, and they got it. The Celtics are a team that can do it, but do they get it? The Celtics are a team that can do it, and when they've done it, they look amazing. End of last season, playoff run. Beginning of this season. When they do it, they look unbeatable. If they can do that from now through the NBA Finals, I don't think that any of these series goes to 7 games. I think if the Celtics play their peak offense, what they've been doing the past few games, what they did to begin the season, if they play that style, no one is beating them. No one's beating them. No one's pushing them to 7. The Celtics go through 6 at the most, and they win a championship. That's how confident I am in this team when they play that way. Problem is, they don't always play that way. And that's what we've been saying. That's what last week's podcasts have been. The podcasts between the All-Star break and the Sacramento game are full of me saying, get back to doing what you did and stop doing what you're not, all the stuff that you're doing now. It's very simple. Play this way. Share the ball. Move. Quick decisions. 0.5 basketball. Everybody's unselfish, but everybody also understands that I'll get my touches. I'll get my looks. I'll get my points. I'll get my assists. I'll get my rebounds. It doesn't matter. You don't have to actively pursue those things. They will come in the natural flow of everybody making the quick decisions and playing their best basketball, the quick pace, good shots, working for good shots, working the ball around, multiple passes, multiple attacks, multiple paint touches, all of that stuff. The Celtics do it, but do they get it? If the Celtics can get to that level, a good combination of guys that really get it, that's a team that not only winning a championship this year, that's going to be a championship contender for the next few years. That's how good they are. That's how good they can be. And we've seen it. When you get away from it, terrible. But it's about getting it, buying into it completely, not being lazy, not going for your own, not getting away from the things that we know work. Get out there. And I'm not saying every game is going to be perfect, right? There are going to be bad games here and there. No team goes 82-0. No team has all good wins and all, tight, hard-fought losses. Every team, even those 14 Spurs, had some tough games. That is not what I'm talking about. But when you get it, when you understand at your core, this is how you play basketball. When you get it, this team is unstoppable. Unstoppable. We will see a run that could rival the 80s Celtics. We could see a run of multiple championships. We could see a run of historically good offense. We could see a run of, wow, Jayson Tatum, Hall of Famer, Jaylen Brown, You win a couple of championships, you make a few All-NBA teams, you make a few All-Star teams. Hall of Famer. Path is there. He's not one now. The path is there. If you play this game the way they played this game, because they got it. Do you get it? That's my distinction. The Celtics can do it. They will do it. And they might do it for the next 3 months and boom, championship. They might do it. If they get it, though, that means next year they come back and do it. And they keep doing it. And the year after, and the year after. That's getting it. Making it who you are at your core. I love that quote. I love the way he said it. And I love that it is a message that I think they need to hear. Can the Celtics get to that top seed? Part of their wake-up call was giving up that top seed, and now they're sitting there in second. Malcolm Brogdon talked about how important that was. Can they get the top seed? Let's break that down next. Boston Celtics now 2 full games behind the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks did not play Giannis Antetokounmpo against the Detroit Pistons, but they still won anyway because the Pistons are the Pistons. And 16 wins. Yeesh. Anyway, Bucks 54-21, Celtics 52-23. Nice, clean 2-point lead. They've played 75 games, which means there are 7 games left. I'm recording this as the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm looking right now at a halftime score of the Nuggets up 61-57. No Harden, no Embiid in that game. So feels like the Sixers understand, with 5 games left, with Boston owning the tiebreaker, that 4.5 game lead is really a 5.5 game lead. I'm sorry. They're 4.5 games behind Milwaukee. It's a 2.5 game lead, but it's really a 3.5 game lead, which is tough to make up over the course of the 5 games. That's tough. The Celtics have a two game deficit here. It's also tough to make up 2 games with 7 games left. That's difficult. Their best hope is winning that game against Milwaukee on Thursday. But here's how the schedule breaks down for the Bucks. Wednesday night at Indiana, Thursday night Boston. So they get Boston on the back end of a back-to-back. Sunday, home against Philly. Following Tuesday at Washington, back-to-back home against Chicago. Friday the 7th, Memphis, and then Sunday the 9th at Toronto. The Celtics need the Bucks to lose one of those games. Aside from the March 30th game this Thursday against Boston. The Celtics would need to go perfect the rest of the way, which means Tuesday night, Washington, they need to start there. They need to continue this roll. Washington, by the way, no Bradley Beal, arresting a few guys. So that should be a win. Milwaukee, obviously be a tough game. That game is the hope. Beat Milwaukee Thursday, you have hope. Lose to Milwaukee on Thursday, forget it. You're the second seed. That's it. It's done. It's over. You're 3 games back and they have the tiebreaker. It's almost impossible. They would have to completely collapse. Lose Thursday night, it's Milwaukee gets the top seed. Done. Over. Win Thursday night, assuming that Milwaukee has also won their game against Indiana. You win Thursday night. Now you've got a game. You're 1 game back. You've got the tiebreaker. So once you get the tie, obviously you win. The Celtics need to beat Utah on the back-to-back. Philly, Tuesday the 4th after 3 days off. That's going to be fun. Toronto, 2 games against Toronto at home. A back-to-back that Wednesday, that Friday, the 7th, and then a Sunday afternoon game against Atlanta. Now, the good thing about the Celtics in the play-in tournament era here, they'll have like a week off. So they don't have to give guys breaks in this stretch. Maybe they still could. Kind of depends on what happens in these other games. Are the Celtics really truly trying to go for that top speed? They can close this out. Beating Toronto twice can happen. Beating Atlanta at the end of the regular season can happen. They match up well against Philadelphia. Utah, they owe Utah, so they'll have some motivation there. Milwaukee, they can win that game. That'll be the toughest one. They should beat Washington. Can the Celtics close this out with, what would that be here? So that would be 10 straight wins. Can they do it? Sure they can. They can. Will they? Well, I mean, we'll see. That's what we're waiting on. Which of these games will the Bucks lose if they're going to lose one? Sunday, 8:00 game, Philadelphia. Boy, that would be a real message. The Sixers might win that game. They match up well. It's one of those Milwaukee would rather see, they might rather see Boston than Philadelphia. Actually, probably not. But Philadelphia is actually, they match up better against Milwaukee than they do against Boston, obviously. So that could be the game they lose. Or maybe Friday the 7th against Memphis. If Memphis is playing for something, or maybe John Morant's trying to prove something. I don't know. Maybe they're trying to ramp up a little bit. Those are the two games that I'm looking at as possibilities. If the Celtics can close this out, can they go on a 10-game winning streak? And can the Bucks lose just one of those other games? Possible. It's possible. But the Celtics can't slip. Mess up anywhere else. I mean, I wouldn't call, if they lose to Milwaukee, I wouldn't say that's messing up. But if they mess up anywhere else, then you need Milwaukee to lose another game. So you need them to go 4-3 the rest of the way. Asking them to go 5-2 the rest of the way is about the max that I think they could go. So it's possible. It's still there for the Celtics. It's unlikely, but it's still there. I think at worst they become the second seed. And like, I've come around to, it's a matter of personal preference. I don't think if they end up being the second seed, it's not the worst thing in the world. But being the top seed and having all your games start at home, think that's all your series start at home, I should say. Why not go for that? I'm sure ownership would love it if you got a couple extra home games out of this, because that playoff gate can really help pay some of these bills, some of those tax bills. So a deep run with some extra playoff games because you have home court, it'd be very advantageous to the Celtics. We'll see what they can do. Starts Wednesday night. You got to beat the Washington Wizards, who are going to be extraordinarily shorthanded. We'll see how it goes. No Bradley Beal, no Kyle Kuzma, Daniel Gafford, Monte Morris, questionable. So shorthanded team there. Celtics should win that game. And then that'll set them up for that matchup against Milwaukee. I'll be here after those games for the post-game podcast, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Also watch the show on YouTube. Love to have you on the YouTube page, in the comments section, starting those threads, starting those discussions, having some fun in there, and sharing the podcast. Tell your friends and family and everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.